in this great continent of ours. On the program Africa Discourse, I am Wilson Marshall. Since our apologies for coming slightly behind schedule, we have to put two and two together to give you a robust discourse on this issue about to talk on. Now, Zimbabwe is in the news again. Yes, it's true that the Chinese were able to lay a foothold in Africa as a continent. They're giving out loans, giving out grants, and right now the latest what is happening in Zimbabwe, where Mnangagwa chooses to take what he claimed to be a grant now, not a loan, from the Chinese government, subdued a new parliament in an old farm settlement. And that is raising serious dust in Zimbabwe. Some are happy about it, some are very, very angry about it, saying that Mnangagwa want to sell out to the Chinese, talking about the fight they have with the Chinese. It took them quite a while, talking about the era of Mugabe to chase away the Chinese national from Zimbabwe. Is Mnangagwa bringing them back? Are the Zimbabweans not strong enough to run the economy? Now for the Chinese government to build a place of parliament, there's going to be a paradigm shift in democracy in Zimbabwe. All these and more take a look at this edition of Africa Discourse. We'll be here in the studio. I have a veteran journalist, one-time journalist, always a journalist, and of course he is one-time also the youth president in those states in Nigeria, in Africa, you just name it. When you talk about political analysis, both local and international, he's very grounded, an astute politician, an astute businessman. Please join me, welcome Honorable RRC Idubo. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much.
It's been quite a while.
I'm glad to be here again.
All right, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, now sit there very close to him is a gentleman I admire so much, a vibrant youth. When talking about analysis of topical issue, he is well grounded. Both local and international politics, join me, welcome, Salvation. Hope I got that correctly.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, viewers. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
All right, let me come to you, Honorable. A long time ago, before the former president of Zimbabwe became the president, they had this fight with what they termed as invaders, the foreign nationals, especially the Chinese. They fought over land, they fought over diamond mine, they fought over so many things, and eventually, Mugabe won that battle. But the outcome of the war was same with the dwindling economy of Zimbabwe until he was eased of power. And right now, the current president, Emerson Mnangagwa, is bringing back, in quote, the national, the Chinese, giving them back a foothold in the country, collecting what he termed as grant. Others are saying, no, that is a loan from Chinese to build a new parliament for them on a disputed farmland settlement. And tongues are wagging both nationally and internationally. How do you feel about this sudden, because about this is sudden development in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, very nicely, you made a point that they fought a war, they won, but the economy was in shambles. So what's important to anybody actually is it's not winning a war, then losing your economy. The Chinese, they have a stranglehold over Zimbabwe, clearly. They've been there over time, and they've done business with, even during the war, they played such a prominent role that by the time Mugabe became president about 37 years before he was ousted, he continued with the business with China. The point at which they got angry with each other was when Mugabe now came with the policy of trying to say, now we must take charge, like they did in South Africa. It was looking at the South African template to play in Zimbabwe. Now, okay, fine, you are here, Chinese, you are here, fine, but we must take back leadership and ownership of these companies. They are your companies, but we must now play the leadership role. Until that, kind of policy was put, in the fall, everything was fine. It's not as if Emerson is coming to bring back the Chinese. They had never left China. So they had never left Zimbabwe. They've always been there. Since 2010, they've had companies that have been thriving, providing employment for Zimbabweans. To a very large extent, they have played so much role economically in Zimbabwe, and I don't see how you can suddenly just take them off But again, Emerson is a product of China. He's a product of China. He's been their ally for a very long time, over 60 years. He's been their ally, trained there, his children are all there. He had some very informal education there. And as vice president, he's kept his relationship with them. So for him, it's not as if bringing back China. If you have an interest that is going to make your country better economically, what is the problem? I agree, some will be afraid that, okay, fine, with this investment, so to speak. He said it was a grant, and you should believe him. If it's a loan, very soon they will find out. The economic team of Zimbabwe are going to say that they also are not clear about the arrangement. But having said that, the Chinese are trying to, it's not the first place they are doing that kind of thing. They've done that in Congo, and they're going to do that in 2 other African countries. So for me, China has come to that place. Of course, they have an interest. You mentioned the diamond interest, which is just very, very clear. That is one mineral product they have been, over time, talking about. So for what is happening now, it's not strange to the Zimbabweans if they are complaining. The former parliament which they had was a small parliament. You built a house for 10 people. Now 15 people are occupying the house. Then of course you need to expand it. If they had a parliament for 100 people, now you have 350 people. I mean, you just cannot cope. You are now squeezing everybody into one small place. So what they're doing, I agree with you that that land is a disputed land, but who owns the land? It's not government.
All right, who owns the land?
Yeah, it's government.
We'll come back to that. Who owns the land? And of course, the interest of the Chinese in Zimbabwe, talking about that diamond field, that controversial grant/loan. Who owns the land? Salvation, how do you feel about this development in Zimbabwe?
Well, I want to say that nothing is truly free. There is nothing that is truly free. In fact, salvation itself in the Bible is not truly free. What do I mean? If God gives you salvation, you are going to serve him. When China is coming with this, I think we should be careful. There's something called Greek gifts. In fact, I'm not disturbed that it is a grant. I would have preferred if it was a loan. Because I'm looking at their interest. And look at the strategic place that they are building. They are building the House of Parliament. That's the governance. The place, and there's a saying that he that pays the piper dictates the tune. By the time sovereignty, the last time I checked, I don't know if I'm still correct, sovereignty means the ability for you to govern yourself without external interference. So if your House of Parliament is built by a foreign body for you, are you not sure they are going to interfere into the law? The day you are trying to make a law and they say no, do you have a say to stop what they are trying to say? So what I'm trying to look at is we must accept gift carefully. I have noticed that in Africa today and in the world right now, colonialism is now sophisticated. It's no longer before when you want to buy slave, you pay money, you force people. No. You don't colonize people that way again. You colonize people economically now. When you look through the story of Zimbabwe, you will begin to see the dominance. For example, I was reading about many of their workforce. How, do you know that even restaurants are owned by Chinese in Zimbabwe? Many things in Zimbabwe. I was reading about how some of their labor force were crying, how they are being beaten by their Chinese masters. Are we not back to slavery? That because when the restaurant is owned by a Chinese man, they say when they misbehave, their Chinese owners beat them up. What is the difference between that and the slavery we used to know? So I want to say that Africa, if you look at what China is doing, we appreciate what they are doing. If it is a win-win situation. But the question now is, are we really winning? This debt, are we, by the time the House of Parliament is built by a foreign body, will the laws be made for that nation alone or to support he who plays the piper?
So you raised the point, and I was really coming to that, but not at this junction. But since you brought it up, we have to thrash it. He asked a question, and that question, sir, is directed to you. Remember that when Robert Mugabe was fighting, he needed the power also of parliament to enforce that law that made sure that the Zimbabweans were in charge of the lands and everything. And now here comes the Chinese building the house of government where law is being made. Where how will I put it now? The law governing the land is being made, like what is said. He that pays the piper, he takes the tune. Look at the Chinese are forestalling out that means from making Zimbabweans to enact any law that will be anti their own interest.
No, I think I differ. They are building a house. They are not putting people in the house.
Not just the house, house of parliament.
The house is like talking about who built Aso Rock. They built by Germans. The president lives there. The house was built by Germans. The Germans didn't put a person there. So it's not the same. They're going to build a parliament. It's not to say that whatever will be done in parliament must be in favor of China. You know, it doesn't have to be like that. They are building a parliament. That's fine. The people that are going to occupy the house are different people. When they come, they'll sit down and decide what they want. If they are influenced by China, it's another matter. It's not because they built that house. That house that built here, fine. They built the house, fine. This house was not built by those who work in IT. It was built by some persons for ITV to use. That the person built, I agree with him that it would have been better if it was a loan than being a grant. Fine, but now this is a grant. There are too many grants that we receive in Nigeria, and these grants are given to people to assist them to cushion some pains. Having given you the grant, what becomes of the grant eventually is your business. It's not as if because they're giving you a grant. I agree with him also when he said nothing is free. They gave you this grant in anticipation of other things, not because they want to take care of it, not for your parliament. They gave you this grant because they are looking beyond
the grant.
Yeah, beyond. So it's not. They're not looking at your parliament. They're not going to force you to make laws to favor them, but they could influence a lot of things there. But having said that, the reason they're building the parliament, the Zimbabweans cried that they had a need. And somebody came and said, "Okay, fine, I'll meet the need for you." Because they on their own, I remember I was in South Africa a few years ago when this first issue, when at that time they had 222 members in parliament. The original 100 became increased to 220, 222. And they were always coming for space. It grew to 350. Now it became too tight for all of them. And they raised the issue that they would need a bigger space for them to legislate. And now somebody has come to offer to do for you one. For me, yes, it could be a big gift. Yes, fine, but like you said, nothing is free. I agree. We have said that before. Nothing is free. But having said all of this, it is not, by my own estimation, not in any way going to affect legislation in that house. They are looking at the diamond, which is their major. Yes, he said they beat up Zimbabweans. The Chinese in Zimbabwe are less than the last count there were about 52,000 people, which is not a large number. So how can they beat up Zimbabweans? Zimbabweans themselves are also the funny people. So the Chinese, you can send them packing. I know what happens in South Africa. I know what happens in other civilized countries. If you come to establish a company in this place, it does not give you the audacity to beat people up. So if they beat up Zimbabweans who, for any reason, have become docile, it's unfortunate because you still own your land. And if they come to do what is not right there, you can ask. Your labor people should tell them that even if they have the companies, they must comply with your labor laws. They cannot bring their own laws to Zimbabwe. The people working in Zimbabwe, the companies that are going to establish must comply with regulations in Zimbabwe. So I don't think it's to say they beat up Zimbabweans and the people are keeping quiet because they are working. No, it's not. You don't enslave people like that. So I have a problem with that. But having said that, the Chinese, what I think people should be talking about is not whether they are coming to take over the country or not. Are the people happier? Are they happier with what is happening in the place? So much money has been put into that country by China. So much money. At the last count, they're putting over 16, 17 billion dollars into the country. And So one should be bothered about, is this playing out positively? Is the economy improved by this intervention? Are the Zimbabweans happier? Mugabe was very funny with his own. Mugabe at the point became a very major beneficiary of the Chinese intervention. But they got a little bit, and that was when Mugabe now said, okay, fine, now we must get our people to take charge of this companies. But I won't say that. Nothing wrong with that. It is working in South Africa. But whether to work in Zimbabwe, if it is genuinely put in place, it could work. So that's where we are.
It is genuinely put in place. Now, from what he said, he talked about China not really have an interest in their politics, but in the dialogue. Do you have other opinion on that?
First, I want to say that one of the reasons why I am a bit uncomfortable with China is because of a particular example. If you remember, China built the African Union body in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It was built for us by China. After some years, it was discovered after some years that headquarters which was built was bugged, that many of the microphones were bugged. The computers were taking data back to China. Many of the microphones, that's a heavy security breach. And when it was brought up, of course, China refused. Africa leaders, they rejected. But the fact has been there that they built a house for African Union, and it was later discovered that it was bugged. Was that a free gift? If you're talking about their interest in the resources, that is also their interest in that resources, in the resources of African nations, and Zimbabwe, a case of study, is also it disturbs me in a way. For example, I don't know if you know that Mugabe, when he was there, he gave an exclusive access to China for their platinum, to mine their platinum, to get it for $3 billion, something that is supposed to cost over $40 billion. So many times, because China is a nation that when they give you loan, they are ready to use your mineral resources as collateral. The issue there and the fear there is they give us the loans that they know that we cannot pay. And when the time comes, for example, I think Kenya, one of their ports has been taken over by China. And so you see the collateral, so their interest. My issue is, like what he said, it's not a problem when you receive loan. Of course, loans help us, they help nations to develop, and if the people are happier, we want to know. But the question is this: the loan, is it given with good intention? Is it payable? And when it is not payable, what happens? Are we going to lose? For example, I feel like in the long run, Africa has hardly benefited from loans and grants. In the short run, it looks good. Why? Because we have leadership that doesn't know how to manage resources. These resources are not well managed. And when they are not well managed, for example, if you build, if you go to the educational sector of this same Zambia, China built a supercomputer for them in their university that is worth over $5 billion. The question then is this: the government of Zambia, are they efficient enough to manage that? So that Zimbabwe, yes. Are they efficient enough to manage that loan so that revenue that comes from that can pay back the loan? Or are they just selling the future of the nation?
Right, selling the future of the nation. We'll come to that now. In education, they are there. In mining, they are there. In agriculture, yes, they are there. And now in government, they are there, talking about the Chinese. And from what you said there, you said that they may not be interested in governance. So do you think they want to take over everything from governance and into various sectors of the society in Zimbabwe by this rant in court?
Yeah, I like my friend. They bugged the African Union.
Yeah, in Addis Ababa.
Fine. No, fine. So that's an experience to the whole world. If they build for you a parliament, what is wrong in getting an independent body to come and do a check? No, you see, now you have an idea, you have an experience. You say it's possible to borrow. Fine. They have built for you a facility, and in anticipation of a situation that could replay, then you get an independent body to check. You can there are equipment to check all of this, and you can check before you start to use. But having said that, if I give you a loan and you mismanage, is that my business? No. That does not make me a bad person. So if the countries that, so to speak, seek for these loans mismanage, it's not the business of China to say I've given you a 5 billion education grant and I expect you to pay over time and you cannot pay because you mismanaged. It's not my business. It's not my business. So the collateral is if I'm going to give you, if you have a mining site, for instance, and it's going to cost, you think that the natural resources there could go for $40 billion, and I'm offering you $3 billion, then something is wrong with you. You just must have some financial experts who could be on the table to talk with the other party. But most times, you see a business plan, and the other party is not knowledgeable enough to face somebody that's come with a plan. Then you on the other side. You should also be ready with your business plan. So when he's talking about his plan, you're talking about your plan and you marry. But when you just see 3 billion for a 40 billion thing and you just grab, then it means something is wrong with your brains. So basically, China, to my mind, has nothing by way of, they have not done anything wrong. If they come and your mining side is 40 billion and then 43 billion you take, that's your business. So it means something is wrong with the economic. Somebody must be sitting down somewhere to sit down to look at the mining industry and say of the truth, what we have here, X, Y, Z. So if anybody is coming to offer, then we have information on our side. So we can be negotiating. And we have what to negotiate with. If you don't have, to my mind, the issue is not whether one country is mismanaging or managing or not doing anything. We can, if you build for me a house that I'm going to live in, one, I must do a check. Even my own small house.
But would I allow the check because they're the ones in charge?
No, they would have finished building. No, they would have finished building.
Because they'll still be there to take care of everything.
No. See, they will hand over to whoever. Yeah, they are not. It's another contract to manage. It's not. They will hand over the thing. Even if that. You see, look, we are very conversant with some of these things. Even houses are bugged now. Phones are bugged. Everything. So basically, people are very conscious of these facts. By the time you finish the building, you excuse me, we could do our own check. And by the time you do your own check, there should be there are equipments to do some of these things. And you check, and if it's not good enough for you to use, you of course. So I think it's in good faith. They have given this, but I agree that it's not for free.
For free.
The grant, yes, they are looking forward to something else to pay. Because I mean, it's not for the Christmas situation. So if they give you money to do something, they are also believing that something must be in there for them. So it's a business deal. Salvation, he said, is not free. Yes, of course, too. Not sure. If you are saved, you are saved to serve. You are saved to serve. So you are not just saved to be docile and be empty. So you are saved to serve. So if you are not serving, then you've lost salvation. So these are issues that we must get clear. Freetown is nothing is free in Freetown. So we must go to the business knowledgeable enough to discuss with a partner. But most African countries, they just go, yes, they just sit down, economic team, at times don't even know what the issues are. They just go down and sit down. So you must have a very crack team who can eyeball to eyeball talk with Wilson and say, this is where we stand on this matter. And there could be some advantage by the other party, but it will not be such a wide situation whereby you're talking about 3 billion and 40 billion. I mean, that is totally unacceptable.
All right. Now, he insists that, yes, it's true, it's not free, but their main target is in mines. You talked about platinum, and they say diamond lands, of course, are wonderful found lands being run by the Chinese before the upturn of the law, and it has to do with the constitution of the land. What do you think that somewhere along the line, in the long run, is a method employed by the Chinese to conquer that region, block by block, starting with Zimbabwe?
Well, one of the most dangerous persons you can deal with and one of the set of persons you must be extremely careful with are people that play long-term game. When you meet a man or you are in business with a man who plays who is not looking at immediate profit, who is looking at the future, if you are an immediate person, you can't play with that person. I think the Chinese and Zimbabwe loan and the African thing is akin to the story of the Jacob and Esau in the Bible, where you see the long-term man and the short-term man, where because you are hungry, you are ready to accept anything. Because you are hungry, as long as you see the stew, you just want to take it. Not taking time to investigate the purpose behind this offering that you are getting. It's like a girl that is collecting money from a guy constantly, and you keep collecting money from him, saying he's a nice man, and until the day he tells you to come to his house, and you are now telling him that you are busy. That's when you will know that he's not a Father Christmas. One thing that Africa must do is this, the long-term game. I feel like you said, we may not blame China too much. I have two things. One, the problem with the loans and the grants is the corruption of the African leaders. Why I know that loans and grants will not work in Africa is because we all know that a great percentage of this loan do not even go into the project. They go into the pockets of personal individuals. They go into the pockets of government officials. And right there, I give you a loan for your power plant. You didn't use it. It went into the pocket of somebody. And there's many years' time where I need to pay the loan. If the time to redeem the loan, you can't, I take over things. You know, colonialism in those days, like I said earlier, was forcefully. In the 21st century is willingly. You give yourself away. You are offered it. So what the long-term game of China that I see China as a nation that has seen the weakness of African leaders. I see China as a nation that understands that, if I give these people this kind of loan, over time they must fail. And over time, we fully is like the collateral. These things will start coming back to us. For example, this same Zimbabwe, I don't know if you know that China also gave them a loan to build a major facility in their military. And that loan, it is known that we know that Zimbabwe can't pay back. So let's look at the next 30 years for Zimbabwe. By the time your House of Assembly or your House of Parliament, you couldn't pay the loan. By the time you couldn't pay the loan in your education sector, you could not pay the loan in your military. And many of these places are taken back by China. What's left? If China owns your military, if they own your educational sector, if they own your agricultural sector, what's left? So I feel in short term, they may build certain things, but I see danger in long term because the leaders will not manage it.
All right, he says he sees danger in the long term. Talked about the loans on the ground given to the military of Zimbabwe, talked about the education, talked about agriculture, talked about mining, and now government. Would you want to agree that it's conquering that block starting with Zimbabwe? The same question and throughout time, and he's saying yes, it's a method of conquering.
Yeah. China built the Zimbabwean Defense College. That is true. But you see, China has just given Zimbabwe a grant. The contractors are not Chinese. I'll give you a grant to go and buy a suit. I'm not the one to produce the suit for you. You go and buy the suit. You can buy your cloth and give it to somebody to go and sew for you. You can decide to buy a ready-made suit. It's not me that will sew the suit for you. Let's.
But what has it that the Chinese are the one who built it?
Yes, no. Now, no. They got. You see, they gave a grant. They gave a grant. The Zimbabweans now engage them. No,
It's a different
yes, they had a choice
Right.
as to who they would. You have said you need to do a house. It will cost you XYZ. And they have made available some $46 billion. But you now say, okay, fine, they have the expertise. Let's use them.
So really give it to them.
No, it's not as if they said they must build it for you. But I haven't said that. That's not even the point. That's not even the point. We will keep hammering about whether are we sure that when they give you this grant, they know that you will mismanage. Whose business is that? So African leaders must put their thinking cap on. So for me, if I were a money lender, I will give money to such people whose heads are nowhere screwed. I'll keep borrowing you money.
So that's your
Yes, yes. If I were a money lender, I'll keep borrowing people who I know cannot pay back because they will mismanage. But you see, I've always told people, if you start a business with a bank loan, you can't do well. You can't do well. So if you keep talking about loans and grants and loans and grants, he just mentioned that some African leaders just be like, these things are pocket money. Once they give you this grant, and we have rapid situations here where people take grants and they just think is their own part of the cake. But if we have people whose heads are well screwed to their necks, they will understand that you are mortgaging the future of your country. And they will take these grants and go to the letters and do precisely what the grants are meant for. If for any reason you deviate, I'm not even sure that if they cannot pay the loans, they will take over their facilities. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. All they want to do is to have a stranglehold on their resources, mineral resources. They're not interested in coming to take over your military formation or taking back your house of assembly. To do what with it? Will they carry it to China? All they want to do, like you rightly said, the collateral for all of this are the things that God has provided. So if you fail, but I'm not sure too that in this process, as they are going on with these grants and loans and all that, they'll be signing MOUs, which over time, I don't like a short distance race, I like a long distance race. In a long distance race, you can sit down, you can adjust, you can look at it after some distance, you can sit down and say, come, let's reappraise. For a steeplechase, for a short distance race, you just run and the thing's over, then everybody's either you are confused or for a long distance race, yes, after a point, you say, sorry, let's reappraise. You can sit down and see where to go. But in the long run, I don't think that China means evil. They mean well. But if in the process the leaders do what is not right, that's their business. And I look forward to a Zimbabwe that will be different. Mugabe had his own issues. Mugabe was such an educated person. History records him as the most educated African leader. But at a point he became carried away by materialism and all that. And he became too materialistic and was behaving like a god. Otherwise, he knew so much about China. And he will have used them to the advantage of Zimbabwe. But he also decided to make money, doing business with them. Even the coup so not ousted now, that eased him out, could have been stopped if China was happy with him. But Ngamangwa, whatever I call him now, Emerson, did the kind of thing, he played into China, and China closed their eyes to watch him do what he did because they know that they can do business with this man who has some more sense. So I see Emerson as a person who has some more sense, and I'm sure he will not mortgage Zimbabwe to China.
All right, he said Emerson Mnangagwa will not mortgage Zimbabwe to China, despite the fact that they had a hand in the union of the college, in education, in agriculture, in mining, and now in parliament. Do you share the same view?
Well, I really want to say this, that we must look into Africa and into Zimbabwe as a nation, and we must ask ourselves, what does Africa need? Is it more money? do we really need? Do we think that more money will develop Africa? I believe that if our need is more money, Africa will have been developed, because more money, we've been getting the loans, and the loans have never changed Africa. I feel like if you look at the general denominator of our problem, I think it is mismanagement. I feel like a nation, because African nations have good natural resources, we have the money, we are not able to manage it. The man who cannot manage his crude oil, if you give him more money, he still will not manage it. I think Africa, we must go back to our real problem. The real problem is not give us money. The real problem is, how do we manage what we have? Because do you know why the loans are not working? See how many loans are given to Nigeria. How has it worked for us? The reason why the loans are not working is the same reasons why our natural resources are not helping us. Mismanagement. If we don't solve the problem of mismanagement, whether you give us $1 trillion as a loan, it will not help us.
Yeah, I think we are not, it's a different matter.
Not to worry, sir. You react to it.
The same reason why we are still having natural, for example, if you give Nigeria more millions of dollars or trillions of dollars, the same reason why we have crude oil and we still export it to go and refine, the same reason will make us destroy that money. I feel loans destroy Africa. Africa should learn how. If you put a white man over Zimbabwe, sir, I believe with what is there, it is enough to generate the money that we are borrowing. So more money is not our problem, sir. Management.
That means the Chinese are right by going to Zimbabwe to help them manage the economy.
So colonialism, let them help us, because we need management. So that's why you see that there is no amount of money poured into Africa that will make a difference. No amount. I do not believe there is any amount of money, because every water you pour into a basket is a waste of time. It's a waste of time.
That could be a miracle. to keep the water in the basket.
So our leadership should go back. How do we manage what we have? What we have is enough for us, sir. Yeah. We don't need loans.
Yeah, these are, for me, yes, different issues. Whether the African leaders are good managers or not, it's another matter. But I think the democracy in Zimbabwe can be stabilized. Honestly, all of us, Africa is one of the worst regions in the world. So minus Nigeria. Seriously. Because African leaders are just funny people. Funny people. They, like you did say, I agree with your observation. Most countries have enough natural resources to take care of any situation. This country is a very funny country. We at a point, we will take cocoa from here to London to bring over thing for us here. We'll take oil from here to process somewhere else to bring oil for us. So why can't we do all of this? But in Zimbabwe, for instance, the Chinese, what I think we should be asking, is the economy stable? Is the economy stable? Is this loan making a difference? How are the managers running the economy? Are they doing well by this intervention? If yes, why won't they take more loan? But I just believe that most times when governments take loans and the citizenry could be further impoverished by those leaders who don't mean well for their people. But I believe that taking a loan for a facility, for me, is a good thing, that's in the right direction, but you must be able to set a machinery in place to manage how the loan is channeled. That is where we have a problem. But I think in Zimbabwe now, Emerson understands, he's a very educated person. He understands why he's doing what he's doing. even though they still have these issues now about the election. But fine, he's president now, and he will do what is right. But I just believe that democracy in Zimbabwe cannot be impaired by the involvement by China.
All right, now that is going to be the last line because the PDs gave me a strong signal to call it a wrap line. I know you have so much to say, not to worry. We have other issues to deliberate on Africa Discourse. Well, the Chinese, they are there. They are investing in the economy, and what they all agree to, there is no free lunch anywhere, even in Freetown. No free thing, no salvation, according to the definition is not even free. You are saved to serve. Let's see how Emerson will manage the Chinese influence in Zimbabwe, or is it the kind of scheme to conquer one country, one nation at a time in that region, in that global Chinese government? We don't know. Ours is just to observe and, of course, watch and report back to you. Once more, gentlemen, I appreciate your wonderful analysis. Tomorrow on International Forum, burning issues, yes, the life and time of President H.W. Bush, and of course, the raging protests in France over what? A hike in fuel. Can you imagine that? Anyway,